Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my presentation. I'm going to talk briefly about my current research project on challenges and facilitators influencing physical activity and sedentary lifestyle among South Asian migrant women in New Zealand. Thank you for bearing with the long title. And South Asian countries are countries in the Indian subcontinent like Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan. So in this presentation, I will be outlining key findings of the literature review, the identified knowledge gap, my research question, research methodology and methods, and finally the significance of the research in the field of public health. You see a group of South Asian women enjoying their workout. This should have come as my last slide. So, looking at what is currently known about the issue of physical activity among South Asian migrants, number of studies have been conducted in developed countries. Majority of these were carried out in the UK. And the studies which were conducted were focused on two main aspects. One is to identify the current level of physical activity among South Asian migrants, and also to investigate the link between chronic diseases and the level of physical activity. So, the study findings revealed that South Asians are more prone to cardiovascular problems and endocrine problems like diabetes and metabolic syndrome, which are closely related to their low levels of physical activity. And also studies revealed that South Asian females had low levels of physical activity compared with South Asian males and also compared with white European comparison populations. Talking about the New Zealand context of the topic, South Asian are considered one of the fast growing ethnic group in New Zealand. According to statistics, Indian and Sri Lankan populations in New Zealand have significantly increased, and the highest concentration of South Asian in New Zealand is found in Auckland. National Health Survey report shows a higher prevalence of chronic conditions like treated high cholesterol and diabetes among South Asian groups in New Zealand. And also few projects based in South Auckland revealed high levels of diabetes among Indian New Zealanders. Even though low physical activity is a major risk factor for these diseases, the issue of physical activity among this ethnic group is minimally investigated in here. There's one major study conducted to research the body fatness, physical activity and nutritional behavior among Indian immigrants to New Zealand. And the key findings were that low physical activity levels and high levels of obesity among Indian New Zealand immigrants were revealed. According to recommendation for daily accumulated physical activity, 48% of the sample was classified as sedentary, and 69% was obese, and a further 13.7% was overweight. And also the study uncovered that males were significantly more active and showed a higher variability in daily pedometer step compared to their female counterparts. And finally, the study concluded that physical activity levels decreased even further when these individuals had lived in New Zealand for a longer period. And supporting these findings, and Asian Health Survey statistics revealed that South Asians are more likely to be overweight and obese than other Asian people, and South Asian women, they are less likely to be physically active than other Asian women. So, there's few current issues regarding this topic. Few recent articles have pointed out that despite higher incidence of diabetes, Indian New Zealanders are rarely identified as a priority group in current diabetic programs. And also one example is that Let's Beat Diabetes strategy by County's Manukau District Health Board. They failed to draw sufficient attention to Indian population. And also articles talk about New Zealand health policies. They say New Zealand health policies are mainly focusing on Maori and Pacific populations at risk groups for lifestyle diseases as cardiovascular problems and diabetes. So there is a need for health policy advocates and policy makers to consider specific needs of South Asian migrants and to identify best practice approaches for interventions of this ethnic group. So by looking at what is currently known about the topic, it is evident that issue of physical activity among South Asian migrants, especially women, are minimally researched. Even though there is a general understanding that the level of physical activity among this ethnic group is low, very little is known about the causes, about the challenges and facilitators influencing their physical activity and sedentary lifestyle, particularly women. So my research question is, what are the challenges and facilitators influencing physical activity and sedentary lifestyle among South Asian migrant women in New Zealand? This question is formulated to fill the identified knowledge gap. Moving on to methodology, my methodology is qualitative descriptive. This is the methodology of choice when straight description of phenomena are needed, and qualitative description is specially amenable to obtaining straight and largely unadorned answers to questions of specific relevant to healthcare practitioners and policymakers. And qualitative descriptive researchers, they stay close to data and produce findings close to the data, which is my intention. And ultimate goal of this methodology is to obtain a rich description of participants' experience, events or processes in easily understandable language. So due to this reason, I selected qualitative descriptive as my methodology. Talking about the research methods, 8 female South Asian migrants aged 18 to 65 were recruited through snowball method and using purposive sampling, and women currently residing in New Zealand and those who have resided here for more than a year and those who can clearly communicate with the researcher in English were included, and those who are suffering from neurocognitive impairment and major medical surgical conditions were excluded. Data collection was done by conducting face-to-face semi-structured interviews covering areas such as demographic details, current level of physical activity, and the challenges, socio-economic, environmental, and cultural challenges to engagement in physical activity. Also, self-reported data regarding their level of physical activity during a usual week was obtained using this International Physical Activity Questionnaire. This is to characterize participants according to their level of physical activity. And the data analysis will be done using thematic analysis. Significant statements and phrases related directly to the topic will be extracted, and the meaning will be formulated from these statements and phrases, and then they will be clustered into emerging themes. I am currently at the stage of data analysis. This data obtained from the questionnaire is not a part of analysis really. This is just to characterize patients according to their level of physical activities. Category 1 is inactive, category 2 is minimally active, and category 3 hyperactive is a more active level. So, significance of the research. I believe the study findings may use to draw policymakers' attention to the necessity of initiating culturally and gender appropriate public health policies to overcome the identified challenges and facilitators to physical activities. And this eventually assists South Asian female migrants to enjoy more healthy and productive lives in New Zealand. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Special thanks goes to my supervisor, Erika.
Do we have any questions?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Wasani. I read lots. I just have a couple of questions. I don't know, what is IPAD? IPA?
That's the International Physical Activity Questionnaire. It is to, the data will be obtained about participants sitting, walking time in a usual week, and then will be categorized according to their level into 3. Category 1, 2, 3, minimally active, and then a more active level. It is just to characterize the participants, not as part of my analysis.
The second question I have for you, because you drew attention and at the end of the last slide around culturally and gender.
Yeah.
What did you do as part of your methodology approach, so your ontological positioning? So you talk about there needs to be more Southeast Asian within New Zealand. How did you design your research project to incorporate those values or those cultural factors?
Because I'm at the level of data analysis and already some themes started emerging, and one of the theme is cultural, because especially for Islamic women, they were talking about feeling uncomfortable using unisex gyms and not feeling comfortable going out and exercising. So that's how the cultural aspect of the topic is incorporated.
I was just interested in your journey, how you decided on, should I think about an indigenous method because you're talking about Southeast Asian?
Yes.
Whether there was something out there for
Yes.
you to consider.
Yeah, because I was thinking, because I'm now identifying cultural barriers, so due to these identified barriers, they can invent culturally appropriate methods to overcome these barriers.
Will you go on to PhD?
Hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm always interested in what can we change almost immediately, right? So I started to make a list of people, and sometimes when you're doing research, because you're doing the research and you tell somebody you're doing it, and so what you're really saying to them, look, I think you'll be interested in my results, this is where I'm up to, but you begin to change their consciousness simply by asking that question. So I wrote down 3 people. I don't know if you were here when Filippo McGrath made his presentation.
Yes, I was.
Okay, so Filippo's in his first 3 weeks of his new position, which is the Senior Equity Strategist in County Manukau's Health. So I think if Filippo's still here and hasn't gone, make a beeline for him at lunch, and I'm coming to see you.
Right.
All right? Straight away. So that immediately he's right at the beginning of the appointment, so he makes space for it, right?
Right.
The next person you've probably talked to or with, but it seems to me, sometimes it's not just the health board or Ministry of Health, but I might get the name wrong. Ranjna Patel.
Okay.
Do you know about her, East Tamaki Healthcare?
Not heard about her.
Okay. She and her husband started East Tamaki Healthcare. It's now the largest private practice. I think there's 22 different PHOs part of this now. South Asian woman, right? It's one of the biggest, I think it is now the single largest PHO in New Zealand, not just Auckland. I just think talking to her would mean that, just off the top of my head, that all the GPs would be encouraged to offer green prescriptions to South Asian women, just like straight away, or getting the practices to get the 90 minutes in the gym that's protected Or the other thing I was thinking is at least one municipal swimming pool in New Zealand, in Auckland, I can't remember which one, at least one has 2 hours women only. And if they're municipal pools, to begin targeting them as well for that kind of thing. The other, you're probably working with, or got some, do you know Elaine Rush's work? Okay,
No.
she's one of our colleagues. She's on the South Campus. Her specialty is diabetes. Her concern is not so much the more mature women who are overweight or on the way to obesity, but the young South Asian women who have diabetes with a dietary problem. And that seemed, and Elaine is very, very highly thought of in New Zealand, and especially around her specialist medical area around diabetes. She's also been a major part. The Waikato DHB has this whole program in schools around diabetes, and I can't remember its name, which is driving me nuts because it's one of those, it's a great label. If I think of it, I'll just push, I always say I'll push the search button. Energize. 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 Okay. So Energize they do in the primary schools through Waikato, and they especially target low decile, what we call low decile primary schools, and the weight reduction and the changes in learning have now are very evidenced. But I just think talking to Elaine would be another place to go with your results as well, because she's right in that mix. So I was getting very excited by thinking about your work and those 3 groups of people. And yes, I definitely think you should do it.
Thank you very much.